So the day Morgan died, um, being a spiritual medium, why wasn't I warned? Why did I not know? Why did I not this? One of the questions that I used to get, and sometimes still get. The thing is about being a medium is we don't know everything. We only are knowledgeable about what we're told. Some things we're not told about because it's meant to happen. It's not meant to stop. It's not meant to be intervene. It's meant to happen. Doesn't seem fair, doesn't seem right, but it's the way that it is. Looking back, I can see that there were preparements from the other side for me. A couple weeks prior, I got the sense that someone was dying, and I get that a lot. However, most of the time, it's not connected to me. It's a client or a friend or something like that. It's usually, not really shown to me of being about me. Um, 2 weeks prior, I got the urge to declutter my home, get rid of things that I'm not using, to sell it on the declutter app, to do a yard sale, a flea market thing, just to get rid of stuff. And I don't know why at the time I had such an urge for it to occur, but I did. And so I did that for a week and a half. The weekend before my son died, that weekend, um, I was at the flea market and I had this overwhelming sensation that someone was hurt and someone was dying. And at the time, my boyfriend was in Canada for some shows. So I just assumed it was him because he's so far away. And I wasn't able to get a hold of him that morning. And so as those feelings continue to surface throughout the day, it made me think, well, if something happened to him, how would I know? Who would call me? How would I know something happened to him? And when I finally did hear from him, there was that sigh of relief, but at the same time, never let go of the nagging sensation that something wasn't right. The Sunday before, I was with a client and their small child, who very children are all born with abilities to connect to the other side. And so their child was going through a lot of things. And so I was helping them with their child and showing them how to protect them and, work through it. And my great grandma had been hanging out. And she never said anything. She just was there. So I just, contributed as just hanging out today. Um, a friend of mine who, anytime something's going on with me, my stepfather, who's passed away, will pull on her hair. And of course, she messages me, hey, what's going on? Something's not right. As far as I knew, everything was fine. So I wasn't warned at all. So when I found my son, thinking back, some of the guilt is why it's there. Not only from a spiritual perspective of why I didn't know or why they couldn't tell me, but also the day before, that Monday, when I came home from work that day, my son was in his room with Swiper, which you saw earlier, and she was barking, trying to get out because she knew I was home. And normally my son gets up and lets her out. And after a few minutes, he didn't. So I got up and I went upstairs and I let Swiper out. And I just cracked the door. She came running out because usually, my son, he's up all night, sleeps all day. So I didn't think much of it. I thought, well, it's kind of late, it's 6, 7 o'clock at night. Why is he still, it's closer to 7. Why is he still, sleeping? But again, when they're on these weird sleeping schedules, and they're 20, you don't really think much of it. And I came back downstairs, started cooking dinner. I was up for maybe about an hour. And then I went to bed. And as I went upstairs to go to sleep, I noticed the door was still slightly cracked from the way I left it with Swiper. And I thought it was odd that my son still hadn't gotten up to even use the bathroom since me being home. But again, I didn't get any bad vibes. I just felt like, okay, he's just really sleeping. And so I went to bed. I woke up the next morning, and as I'm getting ready for work, my niece, who passed away in 2015, was standing next to me. And all she said was my son's name. That's it. Morgan. So I say to her, you need to help him. Help him be happy. Help him stay strong. Help him be at peace, no matter what that is. And so I finished getting ready. And I go walking towards his room, which was by the stairs. And I see the door is still in the same position that I left it in. So I open the door. And I see my son on his bed with his feet hanging over the side. And I took a picture, because even in that moment I didn't think he was dead. I was going to yell at him and say, "Stop scaring me like this. Don't do this to me." And as I got closer, I noticed that his chest wasn't moving. So I'm thinking, well, he's skinny and maybe I'm just not seeing it. So I keep moving closer and closer and closer. Until I get to him and I'm looking at him and I'm like, I don't think he's breathing. And so I reach down and I touch his wrist, and he's cold and he's hard. And I instantly knew he was dead. I cried out, "Dear God, no." Meanwhile, Swiper is sitting on his bed with her back towards him, staring at the wall. And I know she was looking at him, obviously, with what I do. But in that moment of complete shock, I just dropped my purse. Cried a lot. Felt like forever, but I'm sure it wasn't. Called the boyfriend. Told him I needed him. That Morgan was dead, even though that's not what he heard. He thought it was my yellow lab who died 3 months after Morgan did. And then I called 911. The poor guy that had to listen to me trying to talk, was just, it was hard. It's very hard when you're crying your eyes out. But I will say the first person that arrived was a police officer. And I didn't realize it until probably months later that when he got there and I let him in the door and I said, "He's upstairs, bedrooms to the left," he didn't leave my side. He didn't say anything. He didn't ask me any questions. He just stood there with me until my boyfriend came. And then once my boyfriend came in, he ran up the stairs. I didn't remember it in that moment, but I did remember it later. And I'm very grateful for the police department. I don't know if they train their people that way, and I'm going to send them a letter thanking that officer for what he did. But that day, the sights, the sounds, it's excruciating. It's something you never forget. I will never forget the way he looked when I found him. I will never forget the way his skin felt in my fingertips. The only thing that I was spared was the sound of them taking my son out of the house on the gurney. At that moment, I couldn't bear one more thing. And I buried my head in the boyfriend's lap and just covered my ears. So I had one less thing that I had to remember from that day. Since then, I've learned a lot. Lots of things have come to me spiritually through talking to Morgan. But in the end, his room is still a void in my life. It is this area that I don't want to be in because it's his room, because it's his space. And I am working on that. I'm working on changing it into something else. Because as long as I'm still in the same house, I have to take ownership over it again. That day was the worst day of my life. And as hard as all these other days are, it'll never compare to that day. And that's what helps get me through, because I survived finding my son dead.